Okay. Hello, Warren. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thank you. My name is Tony Gonzalez. You are going to release a new CD, A Million Voices Whisper. Warren, this is your fourth solo album, but why did you decide to do a solo recording after 10 years?
Since my last solo record, which was Ashes and Dust, since that time I've recorded several Government Mule records. Government Mule remains my top priority. I only make solo records when I feel like I've written a group of songs that don't sound like Government Mule songs, but all seem to work together. That's usually an indication that it's time for me to make a solo record. And I've been doing so much writing the past 5 years or so that I'm really anxious to record as many of the new songs as possible.
I remember that your first two solo recordings were mostly acoustic, but now this new CD is different than those recordings. Tell me, what do you consider are the difference apart from the age?
Well, Ashes and Dust was a departure in the way that that's the only recording I've ever done that had a lot of acoustic instruments and was very influenced by Appalachian music, which I grew up with, was showcasing my singer-songwriter side. I think Million Voices Whisper is more in line with Man in Motion, which was the record before Ashes and Dust. But every one of my records is a little different from each other. This record is very much coming from a soul music direction, but also combining a little bit of the singer-songwriter side of me with jazz and some funk and blues and stuff. It kind of visits a lot of genres, I think.
But something that to me was really interesting is that the name of the CD, the title of the CD, Million Voices Whisper, is not the title of a song. It's a verse of the beautiful song Day of Reckoning. So tell me, why did you decide to do that way, and tell me about the song?
Well, the Day of Reckoning is about people in a modern society that still are trying to gain their freedom and feeling like that day is coming. I think the lyric, Million Voices Whisper, getting louder when we sing, million spirits waiting on a day of reckoning, is a nice way of summing up the spirit of the album.
Another curious song, you told me that the new recording have part of a soul music, funky, and I remember Lies, 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 Monkey Dance. Tell me, because this song to me was the most interesting from the recording. It's maybe the longer song. How did you write the music? Did you write the different parts and then join it, or from the beginning was conceived as an unique song?
The middle section of that track is what we refer to as Monkey Dance. That's all the different instrumental sections put together. I had written all those pieces separately, and we combined them once we got into the studio. We recorded everything live in one take, but we didn't know the arrangement until we were in the studio and put everything together while rehearsing. None of these songs, for the most part, had demos, so I would just show everybody the songs on guitar and vocal and we would learn them that way. Once we arranged the entire song, we did 2 or 3 takes of the recording, and the one we chose is the one that's on the record. Each of them was very different from each other.
Real Love has a beautiful story because it was written by Gregg Allman. Why did you decide to rescue the song and recording now?
Well, Greg had started writing this lyric, and it was a beautiful lyric that I thought needed to be completed. And once I finished writing the lyric, I added music to it, and I called Derek Trucks on the phone and mentioned to him that we should record the song together. I thought it was very appropriate that this song be heard by all of our fans.
And I remember that you were part of the Allman Brothers band, and I would like to know what are your best memories of your time with the band and what did you learn from them?
Well, I was a very big Allman Brothers fan from the time I was 9 years old. My oldest brother had the first Allman Brothers record in 1969, and that was before I even picked up guitar, but I loved that music, especially Greg's voice. As I would get a little older, somewhere around age 11 or 12, I started playing guitar, and that was about the time that the Allman Brothers Live at Fillmore East album was released. Everyone I knew fell in love with that record. We all became big fans. Of course, I would have no way of knowing that eventually I would be in the band. My fondest memories, of course, are being on stage and some of the magical music that was shared on a nightly basis. The Allman Brothers always was and always will be one of my absolute favorite bands. But I also have fond memories of myself and Alan Woody and Gregg Allman sharing a tour bus together and listening to a lot of music and doing a lot of laughing.
Yes, I'm glad that my question makes you feel happy with this.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's not only this, the influence. So Duane Allman dies in 1971. Maybe you have 11 or 12 years old. However, you decided to take the Gibson Les Paul 58 sound in your music. Now, in this moment, do you still use this guitar, the Gibson Les Paul 58, or you prefer the Warren Haynes signature Les Paul, especially made for you?
Well, my Les Paul is a 1959, but the signature model that I helped design is a combination of a copy of a 1958 and a 1959. My signature model is the most comfortable for me to play. I feel most comfortable playing that guitar, but my original 1959 guitar has an incredible sound that is hard to duplicate. But I love playing my signature model because it's very friendly to me.
But do you consider a guitar collector?
Somewhat, yes. I probably have around 250 guitars, something like that. But I'm not as bad as some people.
So Derek Trucks was invited to play on 3 songs. In general terms, does he play the guitar solos or was he part of the writing process?
Well, on the opening song, which is These Changes, that's a song that he and I wrote together. The guitars are separated. He's in the right side and I'm in the left side. So you can easily detect who is playing which part. We get into our classic Allman Brothers type dueling at the end of the song. On Real Real Love, he's playing all of the lead and slide guitar. And on Hall of Future Saints, which is the closing number, we are separated again. He's in the right side and I'm in the left side. So there's a lot of sparring or trading off, so to speak. It's a very nice capturing of what we do on stage, the way we play together on stage.
I always imagine that, taking account that you were from the south of US, you were more influenced by bands like Allman Brothers bands or Lynyrd Skynyrd, of these kind of groups. However, to me it was very surprising when several years ago, maybe 6, 8, 10 years ago, you released a recording called Dark Side of the Mule. How can you mix all that influences from the southern to the prog rock, British prog rock, in your own music?
Well, I've always enjoyed so many different types of music. I grew up listening to soul music. That was my first love. Then eventually hearing Sly and the Family Stone, which led to hearing Jimi Hendrix and Cream and Johnny Winter and Jeff Beck. But I also, at a very young age, started listening to blues, B.B. King and Freddie King and Albert King and Elmore James and Son House and Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. Then I started listening to Miles Davis and John Coltrane and Cannonball Adderley and Sonny Rollins. But I was also listening to Bob Dylan and Jackson Browne and James Taylor and Neil Young. My taste has always been very diverse. As far as the Dark Side of the Mule, I think Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd was the first Pink Floyd recording I ever heard when it came out. And I was very intrigued by it from the very beginning. As far as Government Mule playing that music, that came about by accident. You know, every Halloween, we do a thematic show. And today's Halloween, and we're not playing today, so it's not happening, but all of our Halloween shows have a theme, usually us playing someone else's music. And for that particular year, we decided to play Pink Floyd music, and the audience really loved it and begged us to release the recordings. So we decided to release the recording, and the obvious title was Dark Side of the Mule. We never expected to do that ever again, but we got a lot of pressure from our fans in a good way to continue that. So it happened organically. It's not something we ever expected to do.
Are we going to see more Government Mule recordings?
Yes, starting with some archival releases that we will be releasing next year in honor of the 30th anniversary. Government Mule formed in 1994. Our first recording was in 1995. So the 30th anniversary of that recording is next year. And there's a lot of wonderful outtakes and alternate versions from the early recordings with Alan Woody that we're excited to share. There's also some live recordings from those days that I'm excited to share as well. And I also look forward to getting back into the studio with Government Mule with our new bass player, Kevin Scott, who is a wonderful addition to the band.
And at the same time, will it be any opportunity to have another Warren Haynes and Friends shows in the future?
I'm going to do more touring with the Warren Haynes band, the same band that came to Europe earlier this year that's been touring in the States up until recently. We have more touring next year to promote Million Voices Whisper. And I'm going to do also some more shows with the symphony to promote my upcoming live recording with the symphony that will be released next year.
Now is the moment that I confess you something. I tell you something. I was born in Cuba. Cuba, the Caribbean island, is a communist country. And I remember when I was a little boy, because I was born in 1961, you were born in 1960. And they always tell us about the segregation, the racism in USA. And now you tell me that since you were younger, you were listening this kind of soul music made by black musicians. When you were a little boy, there was really this sensation that there were difference, or you were different than them in terms of the color of the skin or the musical feelings?
When I was growing up in North Carolina in the early 60s, there was still segregation. And I was too young to really understand what that meant. All that would change in the mid-60s, early to mid-60s. I grew up in a neighborhood that was half white and half black. And even as a very young kid, a lot of my friends were black. And most of the music that we were listening to in my house was soul music and eventually blues and jazz. But all my life, most of my favorite music has been made by black musicians. I think that music transcended the color barrier before human beings did. You know, I think music has always been a way of bringing people together and making people understand that we're all the same, regardless of whatever differences we may have. And I feel like musicians and people who love music have always been a little ahead of the curve in accepting equality, racial equality. So that's an interesting point, you know, because in the South, where I grew up, it was a major issue, but not as much in my town as in some places. But, you know, I was very young at that time, but thankfully my family and my parents were very open-minded, compassionate people and always understood that equality was very important, and they instilled that in us at a very young age.
The woman from the company told me that this was our last question. Let me tell you that I find your music there in Cuba, and you have a lot of fans there and fans of the Southern rock in general. But you, even when can we say that you are part of the Southern rock? You are wider in your music. So thank you for your music, Warren, and thank you for this interview.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Bye bye.